You're very welcome back. Now, transitioning into midlife can be difficult for some people. You have more responsibilities, less free time, which can leave you feeling desperate to regain your youth. And that's where the term midlife crisis came from. This can present itself in many different ways: dumping your partner, splashing the cash on a big purchase, or quitting your 9-to-5 job. So how do you know if you're actually at risk of this happening to you? Well, I'm joined now by psychotherapist Carl Melvin, who has some advice for us. You're very welcome to the show today, Carl. I have you on Friday for a reason, because the midlife crisis normally you'd associate with men.
Yeah, and it's not a male phenomenon, but you're right, there's definitely an association with men, and there's cliches around buying the flash car, and these are all symptomatic of somebody experiencing a midlife crisis.
Yeah, so how do you know if you're just having a bit of a speed wobble or if you actually have symptoms and signs of a proper midlife crisis? Because it is an actual condition, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Well, I mean, it's not diagnosed medically, but I think society recognises it as a problem. But just to step back, midlife is generally between 30 and 70, although the boundaries are kind of vague. Some might say 40 or 60. And it's a period where there's a lot of ambiguity in your life, because you're not quite young and you're not quite old. You probably have a steady job, which means you've got a steady income. So you might have some freedom, but you also have increased responsibility. You could be looking after your kids, looking after your parents, that generational sandwiching process. So it comes with a whole unique set of stresses that don't happen in other phases. But then the crisis kicks in when we start to reflect on time and how we have less of it. And death becomes this, well, originally we don't think about death in our life, but it becomes this kind of a vague concept that it's in the distance and we only think about it in terms of other people's lives. But then all of a sudden it's real to us, and it's something more tangible, and we start to think about it, and it kicks off this internal process where we might start to question the entire framework of our life, our health, our relationships, our career choices, where we're going, mistakes that we've made. And but as well, another thing, we also reflect on the impact of a crisis, and especially on our body. You look in the mirror, you see hair is thinning out, you're putting on weight, your metabolism is a bit slower.
Marty's looking very uncomfortable over there in the middle, or else he's laughing at me.
Just sucking it in.
I'm not quite sure.
It in.
But it like what you're describing there, they're the sort of things that are keeping me awake at night these days. So and is it just to do with age? Will it pass? Will it get better?
Well, I think, first of all, not everyone experiences it. I think perspective plays a part in it. Some people view this period as a good period, and that, you know, we have awareness around diet and nutrition, and we have more options in terms of what we do. Others, they just feel trapped. And I mean, a lot of it is circumstantial. We were talking earlier on about relationships and how sometimes if someone has fallen into a relationship from a very early age, it kind of gets to a complacency or a stagnant phase, and they question, is this the right relationship, and is there other options for me? And then people knee-jerk react, and they may jump out of a relationship and change their lifestyle, live their greater life or everything else, and it may not be the right decision. It could be driven by an anxiety inside themselves.
Yeah, you see that quite a lot, and I know from many people my own age, marriages are splitting up because of a midlife crisis. One spouse goes off, usually with somebody else younger, starts living the teenage life again, buying the car, dressing inappropriately. It sounds very cliched, but it does happen.
It does, and it's very much a reflection on identity around this phase and our status, and the car could be symbolic of trying to boost their own self-esteem or how other people view us. Other examples, people get super fit and they start to lose weight, which is a positive aspect of it, but nonetheless it's driven.
Middle-aged men in lycra cycling all over the place. You see them everywhere, but that's it, you see that.
I have a quick question, actually. Can it go the other way?
How?
Insofar as you don't buy the flash car, you kind of go, God, I really want a camper. Or, you know, so I'm 45, right? And I really want a camper. Right?
Camper van.
A camper van, right? No, but it gets worse. Instead of looking at the flash sports car, I'm looking at boxier cars with roof space and big boots and stuff like that.
Well, what does the space represent to you? Is it mobility? Is it being able to bring your family with you on this journey, or is this?
Sure, yeah, let's say that.
Take your kids on holidays.
But it is. It's about having the space, for the dog, the luggage, and the kids, and the
So you're just very practical, pragmatic. Maybe you're not having a crisis.
Okay, all right, good.
Well, something that Pat mentioned was emptiness syndrome. But again, that's quite a common trigger as well, and it affects people differently. Not everyone is affected by it. You know, interesting when I mention it in talks. Sometimes I always get men coming up to me later on saying that they're devastated that their daughter or their son moved out. But again, it doesn't affect everyone. A friend of mine, he always talks about when his son moved out, that he was inside, he was delighted because he had the space, and his wife was outside, was crying, she was very upset, but sure, a year later, the son had to move back in, and he was at the front door crying.
Right.
So,
yeah, but I suppose it depends on the stage you are, and I suppose how happy you are in yourself as well.
Yeah.
Is a lot of it related to children and responsibility, though?
not always. You know, for some people, they're happy to have kids. You know, kids represent transitions. You know, they identify with the role of being a parent.
Yeah.
And they get great self-esteem from that. For others, you know, obviously your time is restricted when you have kids, and your energy restricted, and sleep is restricted, and maybe some people only see the negatives. So I think there is a perceptual aspect to that as well.
How do you kind of talk yourself around a midlife crisis, or what should you do practically just to, if you've realised, hang on a second, I'm not behaving rationally here, there's something going on, I am possibly ridiculous in my behaviour, I need to stop now. How do you actually address it?
I mean, with my clients, I get them to step back a little bit and maybe change their orientation more towards a curiosity around their life and how they ended up here. But also see it as an opportunity, less so than a crisis or something that has to change. So it's taking the pressure off. But then we look back and how they identify themselves, you know, and vulnerability around these type of crises is shaped by our identity and how we look at ourselves. And some people may only view a certain aspect. Maybe if someone is an athlete and they only see themselves as performing in a football pitch, and all of a sudden their reflexes aren't the same, they're not performing in the same way. And we get them to step back, or might get them to big white piece of paper and look at their strengths, their skills, their values, their beliefs, their goals, all the good relationships in their life, their experiences, and they get to see the bigger picture of who they are, what they can contribute to society, to their family, to a company, or to themselves. And it may give them a little bit more of objectivity, that there's more to them than just this one thing that's losing or that's dissipating.
Yeah, and I suppose that happens as well if, in that stage, if you're not at the stage in the career that you wanted and you think, what have I worked for the last 20 odd years for, if this is where I am, this is as high as I'm going to get. And it can be quite soul destroying. Do you feel like your life is almost wasted?
Yeah, there's that. But again, we have opportunities as well, you know, and you don't have the right support in your life for people that you talk to that don't let you wallow in this crisis. Because, I mean, when I was studying psychotherapy 10 years ago, I mean, there was a lot of guys and girls, and they were in their 40s and 50s and 60s, and this was another opportunity for them to go back and do something different. So there are opportunities out there, but I think it starts with conversations and literally just telling people how you're feeling, and you might find that it normalises how you're feeling. You realise that other people have a similar experience. And then from that, you've just been curious about what life has to offer, because there is always, it doesn't necessarily involve money, but there could be organisations that you might bring value to. It could be doing volunteer work. It creates a new purpose in somebody's life. Maybe again with empty nest syndrome, it's an interesting one because the kids have moved out. You never stop being a parent, but the function of being a parent might change less. But again, there's other people that would love your help, that would really get great support from them.
That's interesting. Good point.
But did you ever find that when I couldn't believe you told me your age before we came on air, you look way younger. That man is Peter Pan, by the way, in his 60s. I'm stunned. But many, many moons ago, would you have experienced anything like what we're describing here? Do you think it's a rite of passage in some small way?
I suppose so, yeah. You do get to a certain point in your life where you feel I've X amount of years left. You know, now, needless to say, I'm sure a midlife crisis today compared to, say, Shakespeare's day, you know, or whatever. So I'm sure it's changing all the time. But yeah, I mean, I thought about the sports car. I thought about the affair. So I bought a motorbike because it was less maintenance.
Do you know what? The amount of people... My fellow wants to get a motorbike at the moment. I'm like, no, it is not happening. They're very dangerous. They're very... I'm just putting my foot down there. But it is funny. There is... Even if you have one little outlet like that... What bike is it, by the way?
Yeah. It's a Honda Magna 750.
Oh, right, OK. Do you still have it?
Oh, God, yeah, 17 years, yeah.
Wow, and so that's good. It's better a bike than anything else.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it could have been worse.
Just get it serviced every couple of years.
Yeah.
I bought a push bike. Honestly, see, that was my thing.
Did you get the cycling shorts?
No. Oh, God, no.
Nice.
When I say the push bike, if you can imagine a Californian cruiser.
Oh, cool.
Kind of a big beach, kind of a cruiser thing. So I live by the sea, and it fits out there.
Okay.
Yeah. You look at me weirdly.
I'm confused by you.
What?
Camper vans.
Look at the shirt.
It's really a very unique type of crisis that Marty's experiencing.
I should have been living in 1969.
I think you're just chilled. Listen, I think crisis wouldn't even enter your vocabulary. You're so laid back, you're horizontal.
I'd be surprised.
My God. But do you think, Killian, I mean, you're in your 30s now. I suppose my worst one, when I hit 30, I hit a wall. Yeah. Because the expectations of certain ages. And do you think we're judged a bit by that, though?
Absolutely, and judged, you know, by society and where you should be at a certain point at at life. And I was very fortunate from a young age. I got to work with Pat when I was much younger, and I was in an adult environment from a very young age. So I got to see that life is different for different people, that there is no one true course. And I had a lot of friends then who were like, oh, we've got to do commerce and UCD, and then you go on to be an accountant, and that this is the route you go. But that never appealed to me because, I don't know, I guess because I was opened up from a young age to the idea of life being whatever you want it to be. Yeah. That meant that I was in a position to not feel as bound by those societal norms, to be able to be fortunate enough to take the risks that have put me in a position that now I do something every day and I cannot believe that I get to do it for a living.
Yeah, me neither.
The skies are here, isn't it?
This is
living the dream.
Fridays wouldn't be the same.
I'm on the telly right now. Like, honest to God, how cool.
With your buddies, can it get any better?
This is like the dream.
But I have to ask you, Carl, how do you know, though, if it's something more serious or if it's evolving into something more serious? Because a big issue as well for men, and particularly at the moment in Ireland, there's an epidemic of suicide and mental health issues and serious depression in older men. And how do we know if there's something that might start out as something, oh, there's a motorbike or there's an affair or something like that, that is actually symptomatic of something, maybe a deeper problem?
Yeah, well, I mean, our emotions are transitory. They should be in constant flow. But if people feel emotionally stuck, and that's what we work with, we work with the emotional distress that might be there. But again, recognising inside ourselves, maybe some people find themselves becoming withdrawn. They're not openly talking to people, not engaging with people in the same way that they were before. And someone in your life may recognise that inside of you. And we were talking about people giving advice and not being able to hear it sometimes, people close to you. But it's been open to that, okay, I've hit a point in my life where I could well be in a crisis. I'm not feeling great. I need to talk about it. And, more and more people are talking about it. It's an interesting age now where more people are coming forward and being open about their mental health, physical health, relationship problems. And again, we can't say it enough, just talk to somebody.
But I think sometimes, and with men as well, they still find it more difficult to open up and talk about their feelings. I don't know, lads, would you agree with that?
I think one of the great things about the men's shed is that kind of thing, because they say that men never talk face to face, they talk shoulder to shoulder. You know what I mean? So they won't do eyeball, but so you'll get it out some way, better out than in. Yeah, you know what I mean? So you're doing an activity and you're talking about whatever, and it's much better. So I think the men's shed movement is great for that. And there's a whole mixture of people, and it's fantastic.
It's very much, I mean, men talk to me all the time, and I often ask them, well, why is it they're comfortable talking to me and not others? But it's been out relational safety as well. And it's eye contact. I mean, you have quite a nice manner about you, so I'd feel quite comfortable talking to you. Others, they put on a certain bravado, a certain type of masculinity, which is nothing wrong with that, but it may stop people from being open up and feel comfortable talking about them. So a lot of it is about how we carry ourselves. Are we open to other people coming to us and talking to us? And it is an attitude as much as body language as well.
I think definitely we have come a long way, I say the 60s and
shut up,
all that stuff is mad. Then we got all American California now, and it's all very touchy-feely and everything, you know what I mean? And it's good to talk, and it is great. So that's one of the benefits. Like a lot of things, it can be pushed too far and becomes all...
Do you know what it could become, though? It's quite amazing. I've done quite a few counselling sessions, through bereavements and other various bits and pieces throughout my life. I love it. I have to say, I love, because you walk out and you just feel like, oh my God, I highly recommend it.
And as therapists, we love seeing that. We see the transition, the transformation happen in 1 hour. All of a sudden, and because it's been pretty anxious going into therapy first. We forget because we do so much what it was like for us when we first go to therapy. Because most therapists have been in therapy. It's just a cycle. And it is, you don't know who this person is, how they're going to receive us, are they going to judge us? That's probably the greatest fear. And you realise there's no judgment here.
That's great.
It's such a good thing to do.
If people want to get in touch with you, Carl, I'm sure you've hit a note with many people watching today. How do they do so?
Well, I'm based in Aspen County in Lucan Village, but it's carmelvin.com is the website. You can reach out anytime.
It's on screen there. Listen, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much today. And now time for a quick break, but when we come back, we'll ask the boys to try and explain one thing that women just can't understand. Find out what in 3.